Thank you. My name is Sharon Almaguer. I have property in Port Isabel where we reside. I'm here to speak in opposition to the permit. First off, I echo the concerns that were previously raised by Joyce Hamilton and Rebecca Hinojosa. The FAA needs to do a comprehensive environmental impact assessment of this project. What's been done for a project of this magnitude for the area that is going to fundamentally transform this area is cursory and it's inadequate. And so you need to conduct a complete environmental impact study. Secondly, I too am concerned about the overtaking of access to Boca Chica Beach. Local residents who have been accustomed and who have a constitutional right under the Texas Open Beach Act, under the Constitution, because we have open beaches here in Texas, have lost access to Boca Chica Beach. The company has violated agreements with the county in terms of beach access. They have regularly closed off the beach when they were not authorized to do so, and have basically just run roughshod over locals in the area. And that's been wrong. And their heavy-handed tactics have not gone unnoticed, and they are inappropriate. Secondly, we've had launches at my home in Port Isabel with these smaller rockets. I don't know how you can say that the noise is in any way acceptable or that the vibrations are in any way acceptable. My house shakes with little rockets, and it sounds like the rocket is coming right over my head. And when they boost these heavy rockets, you've already seen cracks and certain seismic issues having to do in South Padre Island. But I expect that that's going to become widespread, and you're going to see widespread property damage. And Elon Musk coming in after the fact, I'm sure they'll deny all of it, but him coming in after the fact, trying to throw a little bit of money around is not going to take care of this problem. So you need to do your job. You need to do a complete and comprehensive assessment of this project. That's really all I have to say. Please do your job. This is a profound project that is going to fundamentally change this area of the world. And you need to do your job, and you need to stop it. Thank you.
My name is Molly Smith, and I'm a permanent resident of South Padre Island. I've read the PEA, including the appendices and the addendums to the 2014 EIS. Today, I'm asking you, the FAA, and the other agencies that regulate public safety and are the guardians of our water, air, and environmental resources, conduct the analysis necessary to prepare a new EIS based on the new scope of the SpaceX endeavor. The 2014 EIS, based on Falcon 9 Falcon Heavy, is not useful as it does not address major changes to the rockets and facility infrastructure. The Starship Super Heavy thrust is 4 times greater than the Falcon 9 Falcon Heavy. That was going to be tested at Boca Chica facility. And in fact, the increased number of launches and landings is already having a greater cumulative impacts on beach access and the surrounding ecosystem. In the January 2021 scoping hearings, one of the important public requests was that there be a launch failure analysis that would include impacts on the Port of Brownsville, Port Isabel, SPI, and the only bridge to the island. This was not addressed in the PEA, nor was there any discussion of who would be responsible for emergency services in case of a launch failure. There needs to be a comprehensive response plan that includes the identification of parties responsible for actions and costs. This cannot be fully assessed without a complete EIS. According to the May 2020 written reevaluation, the FAA is authorized to grant launching licenses and experimental permits. It does not have regulatory authority over all of SpaceX's activities at Boca Chica. Those include most of the construction of facilities such as the power plant, the natural gas pretreatment facility, and the desalination plant. These are not insignificant operations, and indeed, concerns have been raised by the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service regarding changes to the scope of the project. In that May 2020 document and others, the concerns were downplayed or dismissed. It is clear that the FAA, should prepare an EIS. One would think that the FAA, in order to assure the public that it is following all of the appropriate protocols, would want to go with safety first and be in compliance with all NEPA guidelines. So I hope that you, the FAA, along with other federal agencies who exist to protect us and our resources, will act independently and complete an EIS on the new SpaceX project so that you can understand all the impacts and be able to act accordingly. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Claudio Hernandez, and I represent myself. I am a long-term resident, and I want to speak on myself and how this impacts my community. I have not lived here 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years. I have lived here my entire life, and it's disheartening how people believe that SpaceX is bringing community enrichment, because it's not. They do not know the community. They don't know our language. And for them to think that money that Elon Musk and SpaceX is bringing will benefit us is mistaken. I do not believe that SpaceX should get the new approval for the launch proposal that they're asking for. They're not considering us. My personal experience having to want to go to the beach and the road is always closed, where they had promised that we would not be affected. I choose to live here. I am educated, but choose to live in this community my entire life because of the beauty that we have here, our environment, our people. Our rents are getting higher here. The housing is getting higher. The people that are being hired by SpaceX are not people from the community. Why? Because not everybody speaks English here. Not everybody has a degree. And the ones that do decide to stay here for the environment, our beaches. I can choose to go any beach, and I'd rather be here in Boca Chica Beach. I believe that if SpaceX continues to get approved a license for the ships, all it does is hurt our environment, our pollution. Our animals can't speak for themselves, but I wish to defend them and their housing. The fact that we could explore in the future is wishful thinking, but my thoughts are from my generation, my people here that choose to live here and choose to protect our land, our community from any more destruction that it already has. I do believe in building a better community. I do not believe money that SpaceX provides us will help us in the future in that sense. I believe that community will benefit more from the preserving our land, from preventing to be destructed by pollution. I just wish people would see that and respect our land and would think of us. And so the FAA would think of our community first than money.
My name is Victoria Guerra. I'm a lawyer in South Texas, and I'm a board member of the Friends of the Wildlife Corridor. As much as Mr. Musk wants exemption from NEPA regulations and processes, there is no such categorical exemption here. A finding will undoubtedly occur that SpaceX activities are likely to have significant impacts, and full NEPA review will be required under 40 CFR 1501.3. Certain factors have to be considered in making this determination. One such factor is the determination of adverse effects on the affected area's listed species and designated critical habitat under the Endangered Species Act. Some of these endangered and threatened species include, but are not limited to, northern Aplomado falcon, the piping plover and its critical habitat, the red knot and its proposed critical habitat, the jaguarundi, the ocelot, the endangered and threatened sea turtles of at least 5 species. This area is also protected by Texas Parks and Wildlife and the National Historic Preservation Association. Another factor in considering significance under NEPA would be consideration of whether SpaceX activities violates federal and state law protecting the environment under 40 CFR 1501.3 B23. SpaceX activities result in violation of the National Wildlife Refuge, for SpaceX's use of the refuge, such as it serving as a debris field when the blast danger area and within the blast danger area, and it being used for debris retrieval, which has destroyed refuge habitat in the past and would likely do so in the future. For members of the public to use the refuge, the service must engage in a compatibility determination to ensure that the activities are compatible with the refuge's purposes. Also, whenever a refuge is used for economic purposes, the service, meaning the Fish and Wildlife Service, must issue a special use permit for economic activities. From what I have gathered, Fish and Wildlife does not plan on doing a compatibility determination or a special use permit, nor has it done so in the past. However, even if it did, compatibility requirements in the Refuge Act are very strict, and there is absolutely no credible way that SpaceX's activities could ever be deemed compatible with the purpose of the refuge. Also, the Refuge Improvement Act requires the service to administer the system to ensure that the biological integrity, diversity, and environmental health of the systems are maintained for benefits of present and future generations of America. However, largely due to the forced closure, the service has explicitly stated, due to operations by SpaceX, the service's ability to maintain the biological integrity, diversity, and environmental health of refuge resources has been significantly diminished at Boca Chica. The Act also requires the service to provide for conservation of fish, wildlife, and plants, and the Fish and Wildlife is unable to do so. We would ask that the full environmental impact statement be conducted. Thank you.
I am E. Capulet. I am here representing myself. I strongly discourage the FAA from providing SpaceX any further permits and strongly encourage them to instead conduct a full environmental impact statement. Thank you.
Hello, I am Bill Berg and a board member of the SaveRGV. In an interview during the Starship testing period, Elon Musk answered an interviewer's question about the explosions, saying, "Explosions are part of testing, and he would be surprised if there were no explosions. It is part of the design process." He is right, except for that the testing should have been done where debris from an explosion would not damage the neighbor's properties, destroying habitats and wetlands where endangered animals live and feed, and then destroying those areas further with debris removal operations. The Super Heavy has 10 times the number of engines as the 3-engine Starship. What would be the result of an expected explosion as part of testing? There has been no launch failure analysis done for the Super Heavy. If it is irresponsible to destroy wildlife and their habitat, it is a little crazy to have explosions of the as yet untested most powerful rocket in the world a few miles from the cities of Port Isabel and South Padre Island. Testing could be done safely at Stennis Space Center in Mississippi. We may learn from testing that the Super Heavy is inappropriate for Boca Chica. An EA implies no significant impact. Indeed, the EA carefully avoids going deeply into such areas. In Section 3, for example, the EA mentions that 17 acres of wetland will be filled and covered with concrete, that a 250 megawatt natural gas-fueled power plant will be built, a desalination facility will be built, a facility to produce liquid oxygen and liquid nitrogen from the air will be built, a natural gas purifier and methane liquefaction plant, elsewhere called LNG plant, will be built. This is a lot of infrastructure. None is new technology, but each separately is worthy of an EIS, and together they scream for an EIS. Will there be a significant impact? We can't ask the endangered piping plovers. There are 41 nests counted there 3 years ago, and only one nest found this year. The EA seems to choke over the concept of alternatives. Alternatively, liquid methane for 2 launches a month can come to SpaceX by truck, as it has for the last 2 years. Also, liquid nitrogen, alternatively, can come in by truck, and clean water can come in by pipeline. The concept of no alternatives, which they keep saying, is childish. I want to thank you very much and ask you for an EIS FAA. Thank you.
My name is Elwyn. I'm a graduate research assistant at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I am not speaking on behalf of my organization. The following comments are personal and result from my research over the past few years at MIT. So my work focuses on the one hand on the development of methodologies to assess the environmental impact of launch vehicles, and on the other hand, on the optimization of launch vehicle designs for environmental performance. My comments will focus on the content of Chapter 3, Section 4 of the draft PEA. This section addresses the expected impact on climate. I will focus on 2 points, given the short time allocated. First, the evaluation of the impact of launch emissions on climate. Second, the interpretation of this evaluation. First, the report states, I quote, GHG emissions are considered at all altitudes for a Starship/Super Heavy launch, unquote. But by calculating with CO2 equivalents the total amount of GHG emissions at all altitudes, the report does not account for the difference between emissions made on the ground versus emissions made in the upper layers of the atmosphere. The impact of any specific combustion product is not identical in every layer of the atmosphere. Considering that the FAA has an obligation to independently evaluate the contents of the PEA, my question is, are there ongoing efforts inside the FAA or in agencies such as NOAA and NASA to develop dedicated methodologies to better assess the environmental impact of launch vehicles? Now, my second point, the report states, I quote, the estimated CO2 emissions from annual operations of the Starship/Super Heavy program are significantly less than the total GHG emissions generated by the United States in 2018, unquote. This comparison has limited value for interpretation. So could the FAA propose a new benchmark to evaluate this impact? On a final note, I would like to add that as an aerospace engineer, I know what the development of Starship means to the launch industry, to human exploration and to science, that it will hopefully make space more accessible. So my comments aim at making sure that we know the big picture and anticipate on the environmental impact that launch vehicles will generate. Thank you, and I look forward to reading your answers.
My name is Diana Umpiere. I am not in Texas. I have lived in Florida for over 20 years. I am very passionate about astronomy and space exploration all my life. It in fact inspired me to go to college, to Cornell, where I even got to do an internship for NASA. I've witnessed myself 3 space shuttle launches, and just last Friday, I got to see the Lucy mission go up. So I get the excitement. I have no problem with that part of it. But I'm also a geologist. I'm an earth scientist. And I have also seen and witnessed myself here in Florida, the incredible amount of ecological damage that has been done by the space race. And I fear the same things for the Boca Chica area, and which is why I'm commenting, because I really fully believe that a full-blown EIS needs to be done. And it needs to not only make sure that it has truly meaningful public participation, which has been an issue, but it has a full range of analysis of all the different impacts. And just to give an example, right here in Florida, SpaceX has launched 29 different missions to launch Starlink satellites. Right now, they have launched a total of about 1,600 satellites in the last 2 years. And in the last 2 years, we have also realized an incredible amount of damage that is happening to astronomy, to the very science that inspired us to go to space. It is very clear that NEPA is failing us. NEPA is not taking into account the full range of impacts that come with space exploration. I certainly, all for, making sure that at some point we make it to Mars, but we don't have an urgency to go to Mars. We have an urgency to take care of our climate crisis and our biodiversity, and to make sure that we don't keep on doing the exact same thing that we did when Europeans came to America, and so I implore you to please make sure that you do the right thing and do a full-blown EIS. I will drop in some links on some of the damage that is happening from the SpaceX Starlink satellites. Thank you.
I just wanted to comment on this because I don't really want SpaceX to build any of their stuff. I've lived in the Brownsville area all of my life, and SpaceX comes into town immediately, disrupting the local population, disrupting my beach access, and just making a nuisance out of themselves with their loud rockets at all hours of the day and night. I don't really want them messing with my beach, and I've spent a lot of money to be down here and be a productive patriot of the local area, and I really want to maintain that. You really got to go down there and see what's going on. I'm not really sure why they continue with this space hoax. It's really anybody's guess, but I'm saying it's probably something to do with money. Anyways, I don't want a billionaire to come down here and hire a bunch of Mexicans because they're just polluting the local area. Anyways, though, instead of building giant exploding grain silos, how about we fix the problems right here in Texas is what I'm saying. Once Trump is back in charge, things will go back to normal. Really what I'm saying is that you should do the best you can to stop this. That's all I have to say.
My name is Craig Naser. I'm the conservation chair of the Lone Star chapter of the Sierra Club. A brilliant human once said, "On Spaceship Earth, there are no passengers. We are all crew." This means all of us, all humans, animals, and plants. Every living thing affects every other living thing. Through time, evolution has formed an ecosystem that makes the Earth livable for all crew members. The totality supports all individuals and is necessary for all life. Too often in the past, the concept of environmentalism has left out human culture. This is because advanced human culture over the past few hundred years has behaved irresponsibly and is now affecting the ecosystems that sustain all life in a way that undermines all life. One of the biggest problems the Earth now faces is climate change, but not all humans have an equal part in this. Different human cultures have had different impacts on the planet. In fact, most human culture, through most of time, these cultures have been present, has had environmental impacts slow enough so that others of the Earth's living things could evolve to balance these impacts. Ecosystems stayed strong and functional, but now that has changed. The actions of a growing minority of humans is now putting the whole planet at serious risk. Some say the solution is to leave Earth, go to other planets. We should leave this dying, polluted Earth behind to whomever chooses to stay and die along with it. Others say, no, we should rebalance the only planet we have. We should adapt strategies learned from 1 million years of humans living sustainably on the Earth and develop new strategies. The truth is, we might be able to do all of these, but we must not let one destroy the other. It is clear that SpaceX has begun to throw the South Texas environment out of balance and threatens the human cultures that have lived there sustainably for thousands of years. If we move too fast, it may work for those anxious to leave Earth, but it threatens to destroy the beautiful and sustainable South Texas environment and cultures that I know and love. I have visited the valley for over 40 years. I fished the Gulf of Mexico and the Laguna Madre. I've spotted endangered species of birds, reptiles, mammals, insects, and plants. I've shared the surf with dolphins, sand sharks, and pompano. I've eaten incredible meals at local restaurants, and I've purchased beautiful art from native cultures.
30 seconds.
I've never ridden in a spaceship other than the one in which I already ride. Most of us never will. Should we risk destroying what we have so a few can go to Mars as soon as possible? Let's protect what we have. At the very least, please do a full environmental impact statement for the greatly increased activity proposed for SpaceX. Protect both the people and the wildlife of South Texas, and then extend out into space. Don't risk the paradise we already have for a little-known destination.
That's time. Thank you for your comments.
My name is Russell Sutton. I'm a resident of Detroit, Michigan, and have a biology degree with a chemistry minor. We all wear different labels that describe us, and sometimes they can come into conflict. I am a SpaceX fanboy. Shout out to Tim Dodd, Scott Manley, and my fellow tank watchers, but I am also an environmentalist. As a Michigander surrounded by Earth's greatest natural resource, I take the environment very seriously. With that said, this PEA document is woefully inadequate in addressing many of the proposed expansions in Starbase. Already, we have used numerous PEAs which push the limit of the original 2014 EIS. While there are many concerns, I will be focusing on the gas-fired power plant and the pre-treatment systems. It is my understanding that many components associated with those systems are omitted entirely in the document, such as oil storage tanks, amine reboilers, thermal oxidizers, process flare, and condensate loading equipment. In section 3.14.4.1 concerning energy supply, we continue to see glaring omissions. Nowhere does it say where or how the fuel will be transported to the power plant. It is assumed that a nearby pipeline, which runs through federally protected lands, will be recommissioned to address this. But again, this document does not address this. The whole chain of production, refinement, and transportation of fuel are just not in the report. I also noticed a little trick in the wording in this section. It states that the propellants for the rockets won't affect local supply chains, but failed to mention that the strain on local supply concerning the fuel for the power plant. Again, these are just a few but of many concerns not addressed in this document. The expansion of Starbase is necessary. I know Starship will reduce costs and save taxpayer dollars for the upcoming Artemis and Gateway projects. Starship will be the rocket that takes us to Mars. And on a more practical note, we need to stay ahead of the CCP. We claim to have higher standards than other countries, but the use of a PEA document for a large gas-fired power plant would diminish our environmental leadership. It is my understanding that the Clean Air Act of 1963 could give environmental groups and others the power to force the FAA's hand to do an EIS. Legal challenges will only delay the expansion even more.
30 seconds.
I propose that SpaceX and the FAA devote man-hours to expedite the development of a robust EIS document to prevent legal challenges and delays. Thank you for your time, and God bless America.
Okay, my name is Kenneth Teague, retired coastal ecological scientist, 40 years experience in Texas and Louisiana in coastal environment protection and restoration. I'm a certified professional wetland scientist and a certified senior ecologist. I'm knowledgeable and concerned coastal scientist and citizen of the U.S. and the state of Texas and a fifth-generation native Texan. I have no conflict of interest. I am not employed by SpaceX, its contractors, or any of its competitors. I am a U.S. citizen. FAA should specifically identify comments made by SpaceX employees or its contractors. FAA must determine whether NEPA legally allows for comment by non-U.S. citizens or non-U.S. residents. If NEPA does not allow for that, FAA must identify comments made by ineligible commenters and remove them from the administrative record. The original agency approvals that allowed SpaceX to destroy Boca Chica were made incorrectly based on intentional withholding the scope of planned activities. SpaceX and FAA selected what may be the worst possible environmental location for the facilities it constructed and for the proposed expansion of these facilities. Boca Chica is not Cape Canaveral. Cape Canaveral does not have ocelot or jaguarundi. The endangered ocelot and jaguarundi are iconic and endangered cat species that are unique to this area and are already almost certainly seriously impacted by SpaceX. They are not doing well. They do not appreciate all this support for their destruction. SpaceX and FAA did not conduct an acceptable alternatives analysis in 2014, nor have they done so for the draft PEA. Acceptable alternative locations with far less environmental impacts clearly exist. The 2014 EIS underestimated the environmental impacts of SpaceX activities at Boca Chica. Are they being honest about their future plans? At a minimum, the existing and proposed projects significantly affect threatened endangered species and their habitats, aquatic habitats, legally protected public use of the beach, a major wildlife refuge, and 2 state parks, and whatever is left of the community of Boca Chica Village.
30
SpaceX
seconds.
has a hired police force which has abused its authority. SpaceX was inappropriately issued a Clean Water Act Section 404 permit by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. SpaceX did not comply with the 404B1 guidelines and isn't in compliance with it. The existing and proposed projects violate the Barriers Resources Act. This is not trivial.
I'm from Corpus Christi, Texas. I'm calling in because I'm concerned about what I see as an abuse of power, and I want to go ahead and back up what Rebecca and Ahosa said. This is environmental racism. This is colonialism. I'm 52 years old. I'm a fifth generation Texan. I live in Corpus Christi, Texas. I know Becca and Ahosa because she brought water to my community when a refinery poisoned our water and we couldn't drink out of it. That's because the TCEQ and the EPA and my city, Corpus Christi, were not taking care of the business that their job is, and that is to keep the city and the water safe. Now the FFA has a job now, and allowing this company, and this is a company, this is not part of, rah USA. Nah, this is a private entity, and it's undemocratic. And that's another point I want to make. This is an undemocratic entity, and it's operating outside of the constraints of democracy that we had agreed upon, and it's operating outside of the agreements that it made with the FFA already. So it needs a full environmental assessment, okay? And why this is a weapon system. You're testing a weapon system. You talk about all this, your cult members. This is a weapon system. It's going to hurt people. It's going to murder people. We built our space station out of cooperation, international cooperation. We were moving towards that, and now we've seen this horrible slide of humanity, of our society. Now, we do not need to give up any of those birds or anything down there. The only reason they're here is money, and they're here because it's cheaper. They can go to other facilities and test their rockets. They want to, of course, who doesn't want to go sit a little tiny house out on the beach and have their own little fiefdom? But that's not the way that democracy works. This isn't a company that's run by one individual or even
30 seconds.
A board. This is a democracy, and I'm here to ask the representatives of that democracy, which right now is the FFA, to do a full environmental assessment of anything that they do down on Boca Chica Beach. And I further think that there should be another formal meeting, because you did not put this out in Spanish. And
Time.
That is.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Melissa Martinez, and I am a Texan. I was born and raised here in Texas, in Houston. So I want to talk about that for a moment. So living here in Houston, my city is all about, renovation and being the capital of, all these innovation ideas. And with that background of being a native Houstonian, and also with my entire family being from Brownsville and being raised in the Valley, I want to take this opportunity to uplift both context of when it comes to, the desires of innovation. And also, I really appreciate all previous speakers talking about sustainability and preservations and all these big, bold ideas. Well, I believe that the biggest, boldest idea that's right now that we're discussing in terms of SpaceX is, quite frankly, listening to the communities that are being affected of this. And that's Brownsville residents and also Texans in general. And even though there is so much hopes and dreams when it comes to this ideation, but let me bring y'all down a little bit and say, this is the reality. The reality is this will be historical in the making, but what's historical in the making is that this is the legacy of environmental racism continuing. This is the legacy of continuing ongoing colonization and ethnic cleansing in the Rio Grande Valley region. SpaceX, it's terrible to hear that, SpaceX has never consulted with the Carisan Comecrudo tribe of Texas and the original peoples here, such as also finding out that, there weren't available Spanish slides. We're talking about a group that is being affected, that is solely the number one main language is Spanish. And you cannot tell me that there is discrimination not involved here. It is a prized concept of this. And it is also horrifying to hear that there is so much, all of these accommodations to a rich white man in comparison to the residents that will be affected in this community. So with that said, it's
30
this
seconds.
is the now, this is the present. The present is the people are being exploited. Gentrification is continuing. So much colonization and white supremacy traits of this. This is not a lie. This is our reality, and reality, this is valid. There is truth into this. And I really hope that y'all take into considerations of not only the biodiversity that will be affected. This is talking about Black and Brown communities being affected, and this is not.
That's 3 minutes. Thank you for your comments.
Good evening. My name is Craig Casper. I am a resident of Padre Island, and I have read the preliminary environmental assessment. I'm actually surprised that a mitigated EA is the approach being attempted. I have been the leader of nearly 15 EPA assessments, including 15 full EISs. Based on that experience, I asked that a tiered EIS to describe detailed analyses of the significant direct, indirect, and cumulative impacts of the proposed actions and the appropriate mitigation for those actions be undertaken. It is criminal that individually significant actions, such as a desalination plant, are discarded without exploration. Significant secondary impacts, such as changes in population and increasing support industries developing in the area, aren't discussed at all. And significant cumulative impacts, such as increased tourism and fangirls driving around looking at the cool rockets, are discarded without discussion. The FAA is the cognizant agency for the NEPA Environmental Policy Act. It needs to treat it with the gravitas that deserves. Facilitating the richest man on the planet to ignore the laws of the United States at the expense of low-income, minority, and vulnerable ecosystems is not the role that the FAA should embrace. It may be that the benefits of the proposal outweigh the impacts. It may also be that the currently proposed location is not suitable for the development and launching of Starship and Super Heavy. Maybe the abandoned bombing range on Calabria would be better. It's further south and would provide more of a boost without the ecosystem damage. Without a complete environmental impact statement in an effort to include all of the actions that will be undertaken on the site, it is quite literally impossible for anyone to know. Please begin the final EIS immediately. Or if the need for this facility is truly of national interest, then appeal to Brenda Mallory at the Council of Environmental Quality for an exemption. That is why that option exists. I also want to say that I fully support Elon Musk dying on Mars, and I'm not picky about it being on impact or not. Also, Tiffany Mendoza, you, the translators, and the court reporter, oh my God, you guys are doing a heck of a job. I hope you all have rum punches in your immediate future. You ladies have earned it. Go Big Red, and remember to always throw the bones.
I'm speaking on behalf of the Common Sense Skeptic community. Our channel has released several videos with regards to past agreements made between Musk, the FAA, and the state of Texas. So today we'll speak to Musk's future plans for SpaceX, the declared plans that are not contained in this PEA. Here's what we know from Musk's news releases. Musk intends to use Boca Chica as his starbase of operations. Musk intends to colonize Mars using Starship, a ship incapable of bringing to orbit everything it requires for an interplanetary mission. Musk states every Starship will require 10 to 14 tanker launches to refill them, call it 12 apiece. Musk intends to launch 3 crewed vessels per day to queue in orbit while tankers refill them. So this paradigm requires 39 total launches every day. If Musk honors Texas state law and operates between 7 and 7, that's 1 launch every 19 minutes or 3 launches per hour. The progressions of events would require landing 39 boosters and 36 tanker versions of Starship for a total of 75 landing events every day. If Musk honors state law, that's 7 landings per hour. Relanding rockets was never addressed in the 2014 EIS. Every single event carries the inherent risk of explosion that accompanies rocket launches. Using Musk's declaration, you're looking at a nonstop rate of 10 events per hour, meaning that Highway 4 would be permanently closed to public use. This is not what SpaceX was granted permission for. They were granted 1 launch per month, 7 to 7 weekdays with advance notice, not on weekdays or holidays. The rocket they're going to launch was supposed to be in a much smaller Falcon system. Musk did not launch what he promised they would launch. They were given permission to build a launch complex similar to what SpaceX uses at Vandenberg, but Musk did not build what they promised they would build. So what the FAA, the EPA, and every other interested party needs to look at is not this document. As destructive as this one is, you must look down the road to what the next step will look like. The one after that, the one after that, until Musk, in his declared quest to become the Emperor of Mars, is launching 40 ships a day from this site with 80 landings every day of the year. The FAA told Musk what he was allowed to build at Boca Chica. He ignored you and did what he wanted. State of Texas told him to operate 7 to 7 on weekdays. He ignores them and does what he wants. County told Musk he had permission to block Highway 4 for a max of 300 hours per year. He ignores them and does what he wants. Presently, the FAA told Musk to stop building an unapproved launch tower. He ignores you and does what he wants. This will be your last chance to reel Musk in and hold him to account. If you allow him to double the launch pad, destroy more protected park space, build a pipeline to fuel a natural gas power plant meant for 100,000 homes in the middle of Boca Chica State Park, you will have destroyed a natural paradise for no other reason than to pander to a billionaire who has abused and ignored every single agreement he's ever made in Boca Chica. And the residents of that area, whether animal or human, deserve better than that.